came up, but a few really stuck out to me. Everything from when's your book gonna come out, what's your relationship like with tests these days, talk about your addiction to drugs and alcohol, talk about your recovery, and I can't address everything in one session, obviously, so I had to pick something, and I really wanted to go over my addiction and what led me here. And I'll probably be doing a lot of blogs on this, but I'd love to give you guys a little bit of background and share with you a little bit of my story and a little bit of my recovery. And then throughout the course of however long I decide to do these blogs, I'll tell you guys the tools that I use to live clean and sober like I have the last 7 months, and how to stay happy while you're sober. So yeah, I'll back up to several years ago. I grew up with a father that was an alcoholic and an addict, and a mother who was very innocently naive, and I love her to death. And I love my father to death today as well. He is sober, and he's a huge influence and a positive reinforcement in my sobriety today. But from a very young age, I was prescribed medications for severe anxiety and ADHD, and the list can go on and on. There's always going to be a reason why a doctor could give you meds, and throughout the course of my life up until the last 7 months, I had used every reason I possibly could to get what I needed to feel like I could sustain in the world. So, I started taking Adderall and anti-anxiety meds from a really young age, and it did help me. It allowed me to concentrate in school, to not have severe anxiety and panic attacks at school, which all of those things are great, but the meds can only last for so long, and that's basically what happened to me. It's like Valium and Xanax for anxiety will only last so long. You have to get to the problem that lies inside of you in order to take care of the issue at hand, and to stop masking it, and to be able to grow through it and to face it. And that's really what I've had to learn the last 7 months, is my drinking and using was a result of my bad choices and things that happened to me which I had no control over since I was a very young child. So I really had to go deep within myself and see the events that led up to my extreme drug use. And that goes back to traumatic experiences that happened to me when I was 3 years old, to traumatic experiences that I created in my life as an adult, and the repercussions of my actions, which all of us face and all of us have to deal with. So, I'll kind of be talking about how I dealt with that in a later blog, but back to topic. So yeah, I stuffed all of my feelings and emotions, anxiety, everything with pills, and there was always a reason for me to get a pill, take a pill, have a pill, and that's how I ran my life. I drank for my first time at a very young age, and I didn't really care for drinking. But I did love to smoke pot. I smoked pot probably from like 13 on. And, it just, people say that pot is not a gateway drug. For me, it was. For me, pot, every time I had pot, I had to have a drink or a pill or a drug, because eventually the pot wasn't enough. I ended up having a major surgery when I was 14 years old, and I was prescribed Vicodin and Percocet, and I fell in love the first time that I took it, when I wasn't in pain anymore. and I had recovered from the surgery, and I had leftover pills, and so I'm like thinking to myself, well, why not? You know, finish off the bottle. It's not going to do any harm. So that really began my obsession with opiates. And, you know, up until the last 7 months, I have been extremely dependent on opiates. It started off with Vicodin and Percocet, and eventually I became heavily addicted to OxyContin, to the point where up until, I would have to say, May of 2009, or excuse me, May of 2010, I was in my hotel room with Tess, living at a hotel room while filming, and I was smoking upwards of 20 80 milligram oxys a day. And, you know, there's pictures of me on the internet doing it, and it's something that I have to accept. It was a choice that I made. It was a drug dealer that I let into my hotel room. And, you know, I look back at my choices now, and I address, you know, I really had to go back and like look at all of the videos out there of me falling in the streets drunk, walking out of clubs, and partying like crazy and being wasted all the time. And, you know, my routine continuously just got worse and worse and worse. Eventually, the oxys weren't enough for me, and I moved on to doing heroin. For a while, I was just smoking the substance, and eventually that stopped working, and so I began injecting the substance. And it took me to another level. I mean, I had someone that was really close to me, that was my drug buddy, OD in my arms, and I carried her out of the drug dealer's house and revived her and called the ambulance. And, you know, the second that she was okay, I went back to the drug dealer's house. I mean, that's just where drugs will take you. And the bottom line is, you know, I've heard it 100 times in groups that I've done. It's like, no matter what the repercussions are for for using drugs, like I was facing another 2 years in prison because I was a drug addict. I was facing, you know, another stint in jail, another mugshot on the internet, and all of the stress in my life I was creating, but it didn't matter because all I cared about was using. And, you know, I can look back now and see that, and how sad my life was dependent on a substance to save me. And it really wasn't saving me at all. It was killing me. Basically, at the end of my using, I was speedballing, shooting cocaine and heroin, smoking tons of weed, having at least a half a bottle of Jack Daniels and red wine every day, and still taking my Valium and Xanax. And I isolated. I lost everything and everybody that was close to me besides Tess and a few of my using buddies, and I had lost all control, and I didn't care. I mean, there's a video of me online where I fall in the middle of the street and I can barely speak. And, you know, I look at that and I can say to myself, how sad. You know, no longer can I beat myself up for these choices and decisions, because I wouldn't be where I am today without every choice that I made. But I can look at that and honestly feel compassion for that girl, feel sympathy for that girl, understand that that girl was in so much pain that all she needed to do was run and hide every day. And today I have the opportunity, because of going to treatment, to be free from all substances, to not have to depend on anything or anybody to run and control my life.